Things first, former All-Pro running back Brian Westbrook joins the conversation. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning.
Welcome back to another fun-filled season of NFL football. It's good to for you, right? First time here this season, right?
Yes, first time here for the football season. I'm glad that it's back. Good game last night.
Good. What are you looking at, Nick? You're looking at something.
Nothing. I'm
Nothing?
Just excited to talk football with you guys.
Sure, that's what that is. All right, let's start with some stories to start your morning. The Melvin Gordon situation in Los Angeles getting a little bit spicier. The Chargers running back has requested a trade, to which the team has denied that request. Reports are Gordon wants $10 million plus per year. Brian, how do you think this plays out?
You know, unfortunately, I think for Melvin Gordon, it's not a great situation. This is a passing team. Phillip Rivers leads this football team. They're not the Dallas Cowboys. They're not going to run the ball 350 times a year with Melvin Gordon. And he has some injury problems. There's a bit of an issue there. I think they pay him a little bit of money this year just to make him happy, to bring him in. They have championship aspirations. But I think going forward, he may be out of the Chargers.
If he thinks he's getting more than $10 million per year, he's drastically overstated his market.
All right, let's move on to the Saints. Michael Thomas got his big payday. 5 years, $100 million, $61 million guaranteed. Breeze commented on the deal saying, quote, prices keep going up. Nick, will Thomas live up to that big contract?
I think he will. I think Michael Thomas is an excellent player. I think he's without question one of the 6 best receivers in football, and he is with the perfect quarterback for his skill set. Drew Brees' precision and accuracy to go along with his great catch radius and incredibly sticky hands. He will continue to be highly productive, and I think he'll be well worth the money.
A true professional. It was a good deal. And look, just like Drew Brees said, Amari Cooper saying the same thing. The prices keep going up. So this could be problematic for the Cowboys.
Price of the brick going up.
Yep.
All right, let's stay in the division. Speaking of a guy that wants to get signed and the price will go up, Julio Jones appears to be next in line to get a big deal. In fact, the Falcons GM says he wants Jones to be the, here we go, highest paid receiver in the league. Chris, does he deserve to be?
Smart thing to say, smart thing to do. Yeah, he does deserve to be. Look, it's going to change whoever signs the latest contract. But, yeah, when Julio Jones gets his deal, he should be the highest paid receiver in the league.
When you look for prototypical receivers, Julio is a standard. Yep. He's big, he's strong, he's fast, catch radius, can win the jump balls. This is a guy that everyone wants to be. If you had to build somebody, it would be Julio Jones. He deserves to be the highest paid.
Sometimes a guy becomes the highest paid, you're like, wait, what? Sometimes it makes perfect sense. Aaron Donald made sense, Mac made sense, Julio would make sense.
Moving on to the Steelers now, Big Ben getting set for his 16th year in the league. He says he's enjoying camp a little more so this year. Nick, you think the Steelers have a bounce-back year?
Unfortunately, no. I think that they were 9-6-1 last year. Maybe they get to 10-6 this year. I think they are going to be fighting for the final wild card spot in the AFC. I think the AFC is too tough and the Browns are too good, and they had too much talent walk out the building.
I think you had a lot of talent walk out, but you also had a lot of headaches for Big Ben and that football team walking out. I think when you bring it back together, you haven't heard a bunch coming out of Pittsburgh. Now these guys are focused solely on football. I think that helps this football team.
Yeah, look, I like Pittsburgh. I got them winning the division. I think the Browns will be a wild card. But, look, they've been great always at replacing the great receiver. Mike Wallace, Hines Ward, Plaxico Burress, Santonio Holmes, whoever it is.
Sanders.
Now it's going to be Juju. And I think James Washington will have a pretty good year. So I think they're going to have a big season.
All right, let's get back to the Dallas Cowboys now. By now, we know their conundrum. They have 3 offensive stars with the desire to pay just 2 of them this year. It's a simple math problem, but a complicated life problem for Stephen Jones. Jones admitted yesterday that Dak, Amari, and Zeke are all talented, saying we've got 3 really good football players that we're dealing with. Keep in mind, none of the 3 have Super Bowl rings. So, Brian, are the Cowboys' big 3 just a little overrated?
You know, I don't think they're overrated. I think they're actually really good. And sneakily, I think they have a good chance of winning the NFC East. And that's taken a lot from the Philadelphia Eagles, who have a stacked roster. Right. I think when you talk about the NFC East, you're talking about a team that can run the football and play good defense. To me, that's the recipe for success, especially in the playoffs.
With all 3 of them, they have a good chance.
With all 3. Now, no, all 3 of them have to be there. Now, when you compare the big 3 across the league, you're talking about Mahomes, you're talking about Hill and Williams. They don't compare to them. You're talking about Aaron Rodgers, Damian Williams, and Devontae Adams. They don't compare to them. You're talking about Tom Brady, Edelman, and Sony Michel. They don't compare to them because those football teams score the football 30-plus points a game. The Cowboys are 20 low 20s points per game because they're a running team. They want to play great defense and run the football. So it's hard to compare them to those high-scoring football teams.
Do you think we'll see difference, though, with Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator? There's talk about he's going to let Dak air it out more. They got more motion before the snap.
Brought in Randall Cobb.
Right. Like, do you think they'll open it up and be a more productive offense?
I think they will open it up, but you have to give the ball to your best player, and he's behind the quarterback. That's Ezekiel Elliott when he gets in camp. He's the best player. He's going to get another season of 300-plus touches. He's going to have another season. He's going to catch 60-plus balls. He had 77 last year. He's a very good receiver. Obviously, he's a great running back. You have to give that man the ball. I don't think that offense changes very much.
All right, here's what I think. I think they're underrated. All right, now I'm not saying they're the best big three in the league. But look, Dak Prescott, The Athletic just did their story where they polled 55 executives and coaches. Dak Prescott's ranked 17th among quarterbacks, a tier 3 quarterback. CBS Sports, SI.com, thedraftnetwork.com, they all ranked the wide receivers. Amari Cooper was in the top 10 in none of them. He was actually 17th in the Draft Network. And then Ezekiel Elliott, I saw Maurice Jones-Drew, which baffled me, but he had Ezekiel Elliott as the 4th best running back in the league behind Saquon Barkley, Alvin Kamara, which I put him definitely ahead of Kamara, and then, Le'Veon Bell.
Oh.
Okay, so I think, if anything, they're underrated. This is a team that went 7-1 when they had Cooper, all 3 of these guys, to end the season. So, again, not saying they're the best big 3 in the league, but I actually think they're underrated.
The biggest difference between them and all the other big 3 is the quarterback talent. What are you going to get, or what are you going to get from Dak Prescott? Are you going to get the Dak that's going to throw the ball for 4,000 yards, or are you going to get a guy that's going to miss open receivers, not hitting timing patterns, things like that? And now, if Dak comes back with Randall Cobb and Amari Cooper and becomes this elite passer, this team, you're talking about the big 3, this team takes off.
Not elite, but tier 2, maybe?
Well, but
tier 2.
But here's the problem for me for Dallas with their big 3. Is their best of the 3 is the least important position of the 3 league-wide. They've got, without question, we'll do general numbers to make it easy, without question a top 3 running back. We would all agree, except for evidently Maurice Jones-Drew. I think Amari is a top 12 at least wide receiver. You could argue top 10. I don't think he gets into the top 5. And then there's Dak, who's a top 20 quarterback, maybe in the top 15. But, the players just did their top 100 players. They had 15 quarterbacks on that list. Dak wasn't one of them. The only one that I thought Dak had maybe a strong argument against was Kirk Cousins. Carson Wentz was the 15th ranked quarterback. I think Kirk's better. But the other element is you have to look around the league and say, okay, who are other teams' big 3s? You've mentioned a few. Saints, Breeze, Thomas, Kamara, that's better than Dallas. Falcons, Ryan, Julio, Freeman, that's better than Dallas. Browns, Baker, Odell, and Kareem Hunt, or Baker, Odell, and Nick Chubb, whichever one you want, I think that's better than Dallas. The Chargers, Phillip Rivers, Keenan Allen, Melvin Gordon, if Melvin Gordon's still a Charger. You mentioned the Chiefs, Mahomes, Tyreek, and Damian Williams. The Packers, Rodgers, Adams, and Aaron Jones, who you also mentioned. The Colts, I'd rather have Luck, Hilton, and Marlon Mack because their worst of those 3, obviously, their least established is the running back, but it's the least important. It's because of the importance of the position. The Steelers, Ben, Juju, and James Conner. You mentioned the Patriots. I think you have to get down to the Houston Texans, which would be the 10th one I've mentioned, and say, okay, would you rather Deshaun, DeAndre Hopkins, and Lamar Miller, or Dak, Amari Cooper, and Zeke? You can make an argument either way. It's hard to construct an argument that they even have one of the top 8 best big 3s in football. And now we're at a quarter of the league. And that is because the quarterback position has such a but that's the reality of it, right? It has such a disproportionate importance. And the importance of your big 3, the quarterback accounts for like 60% of it. And of all those teams I listed, the Cowboys are weakest at that spot.
Well, it's a passing league. We all know that. I think the way that they play football is totally different, though. They want to run the football. They want to play great defense. They want to sit their defense on the sideline while Zeke runs up and down the field. To me, that's still a recipe for success. It doesn't, the numbers won't ever match up with the top 3 in any of the leagues.
And that's not the theory league-wide, but for the Cowboys, they've made it pretty clear that Ezekiel Elliott is seemingly the most, I mean, yeah, they're going to pay Dak for sure, but it seems like that whole offense rolls around Ezekiel Elliott, that he is the focal point.
It has, but that's not, as Jerry said it, and maybe is this a revolution in his thinking when he said you don't need a league-leading rusher to win a Super Bowl. That's why I think another reason they may play hardball with you.
Well, yeah, you may not need a league-leading rusher, but you have a league-leading rusher because your quarterback isn't an elite quarterback right now. That's the big difference. Those other teams have elite quarterbacks. Dallas doesn't have that at this point.
There's an element of the chicken and egg here, which is, does Dallas play this style because it is the style most conducive to winning, or do they play this style out of necessity? Yeah. Do they play this style because if you ask Dak to drop back and throw it 35 to 40 times, you are in a really rough spot? That they play an old school style and an effective old school style, but if they had their druthers, they would actually air it out a little bit more, use Zeke as a counterpunch rather than the main jab that they hit you with repeatedly. I think in today's NFL, it has been shown, and this is where Steven talks about the analytics, slightly above average passing is so much more valuable than elite running. The question is, do you even have slightly above average passing, or do you have replacement level passing that can only be average or above when you bring in Amari, when you have all the offensive linemen there, when the defense is stacking up against Zeke? And because that's the other element. It's what does Dak look like if defenses aren't more concerned about 21? Like, that's the unknowable for the Cowboys is, even if you got someone that could replace some of Zeke's numbers, they're not going to replace the defensive looks and the defensive attention that he receives. And how does that negatively affect Dak Prescott?
That's where the new schemes that Kellen Moore is going to put in are going to supposedly open things up. So, look, even without Zeke, with Scott Linehan's kind of basic formations, they were 4-4 with Dak, at quarterback. I mean, that's not great, but it's not horrible. So I think they are going to open it up a little bit more. And I think Dak physically is not what a lot of the great quarterbacks are. But I think he has the intangibles. I think he's a winner. I think he's a leader of men. And I think he can become a tier 2 quarterback. And I think we're going to see some of that this year.
The big question for Dak will always be 3rd and 5. Can you make that completion? Can you find a way to get the ball to Amari Cooper when you have 8 guys in the box like you mentioned, Nick? Can you get that completion? He hasn't proven that consistently he can do that.
Say for what you just said, we all seem to talk about Dak as if he's not going to take that next step. We're all like, but, you have your quarterback in Dak, but he'll never really be that elite guy, so you have to build around him. But. At this point, as he enters this year, are we past assuming that he's not going to get better, that he's not going to make the leap? He's got a new quarterback coach. He's got the offensive coordinator there.
Well, I think the new coordinator, I think the new quarterback coach, I think his coming into his next year of his progression as far as a player helps him. I think Jason Witten helps him, bringing him back helps him. You add another weapon in Randall Cobb, that helps him. These are all security blankets for a quarterback that has struggled just a bit in the past. You add a running back that's going to get, instead of 322 carries, maybe 285 carries. That's going to help this football team evolve and score more points. That's what they have to do to win.
But this is where they put themselves in such a rough spot. We talk so much about will they or will they not pay Zeke. We take as a given they're going to pay Dak because they've talked for a year, well before. You could argue right now he hasn't earned the contract extension, but certainly when they were 3-5 before they were 3-4 before they traded for Amari, hadn't earned the extension then. They were already talking about paying him then. You laid out all the things we think Dak needs in order to take that next step. He's got the great offensive line, needs the running back. You got the veteran tight end, Randall Cobb in the slot, a #1 wide receiver in Amari Cooper. Man, you are going to be paring away those weapons or totally revamping your defense with DeMarcus Lawrence making $21 million a year once you pay Dak Prescott, which is why the critical moment for the Cowboys is right here and now, which is, I know it's not the conversation we're having this second, but it's why Zeke knows, hey, good luck without me, y'all. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? We will see how everybody looks if you are not focused on me.
All right, we're going to have much more on the Cowboys and whether Zeke will actually miss some regular season games. Still ahead on First Things First.